for all posterity. Does anyone have a question?
Hi, Stuart. I felt a huge wave of nausea early on in the meditation. It was so uncomfortable. And instead of focusing on how uncomfortable it was, I focused even deeper on my hara and focused there even more. And as much as like I felt so sick, then the wave of it passed somehow. Was that a block? Could you talk about that? I never experienced the nausea like that.
You know, Paula, it's just poison coming out of you. That's all it is. You hit a pocket of repressed tension, repressed, poison inside you that was released. And by staying focused in the hara, maintaining that really balance in yourself, you allowed it to become part of the flow of Shakti inside you. And you got rid of it. It disappeared. I mean, that's all that happened. I mean, look, early on in this meditation, I remember I spent about a week going to Rudy's classes. After every class, I went into the bathroom and threw up. And at first I wondered, and then I said, no, Stuart, you're just getting rid of poison. You're getting rid of all of these blocks inside you. This is nothing to worry about. I mean, it went on for like 7 days after every meditation class.
Wow. Mm.
And I recognized immediately what it was, that I needed to get rid of that stuff, both physically, emotionally, mentally, on every level. I needed to get rid of all of those blocks, all of that poison from drugs and from all kinds of stuff I did, alcohol that I did when I was a young person, And then it stopped. It went away. So what you experienced is really an important part of growth, because it's the release of poison. I don't know, I'm not sure exactly why anyone has it there, but we all do. We have to release it. And it's not something that should freak us out. It's something that we should be grateful for, that we're getting free of these things that are keeping us from being happy, from having a spiritual life, from growing in ourselves. And this is really essential. It's a very important part of it. I mean, not saying that all of you are going to have that experience. I mean, that I don't know. But if it does happen, you'll know why it's happening. Because it's an essential thing that we get rid of. I mean, look, when I was a kid, I don't know how much drugs, LSD and, marijuana and DMT and all kinds of drugs I did when I was younger. I only learned later that those drugs literally poison your system. They begin to eat away at the cells in your system. And in those classes, I could feel all of that stuff, that I had retained in myself being released, getting rid of it.
Thank you, Stuart. It was because of your consistent teaching on us to focus on the hara that I stayed with it instead of, excusing myself. And I said it wasn't easy, but I stuck with it. And thank you for that lesson. I'm grateful.
No, Paula, what you just expressed is an important element in spiritual growth. It's not always comfortable. At the end of classes, we all are kind of relaxed, but when these things open inside, it's not always a comfortable thing. It's getting rid of I mean, it's like homeopathics, you get the problem in order to get rid of the problem. They give you the disease to get rid of the disease. And it just releases all the poisons of the disease, and you can feel them in your system. And then it gets flushed out and you get free of it.
Thank you, Stuart.
No, I remember, just to add on to this, I remember when Rudy was doing, I talked about this before, but it's very appropriate to this situation. Rudy was doing healing work with a woman who had a stage 4 cancer. And she was in the back of his store and he went and worked on her. And then he came back out. I was sitting by his desk and he said, Stuart, I want you to go back and work on her. And I went back and I started, doing things he taught me. And the one thing I didn't do was flush the poisons that came out of her into my system, out of my system. And I'll never forget, it got so powerful that I just literally collapsed. I fainted right at the foot of this woman. And, and Rudy came back, he was smacking me. He was, made me run around the block, 2 times. He said, and then I came in, he said, you're really stupid. So you got to flush the poisons out or they'll kill you. He said, but you know what happens, Stuart? It's like getting a cholera injection. You got the disease and you will be able to heal people in your life. He said, that's what happened. And it was true. And I mean, I eventually wound up doing a lot of healing in my life. But it came from that experience. And, it's how to turn one's stupidity into something very positive, And from that point on, I learned how to get rid of the poison, how to flush it out of my system. When I do work with people that have cancer, they used to work with a lot of people that had AIDS. And that was really strong stuff. Does anyone else have a question they would like to ask?
I have a question, Stuart. When you experience your hara, is it more of centralized focus point below the navel, or do you also experience it much larger? Like, does it extend out so your sense is larger than that?
No, Wendy, it extends infinitely.
Mhm.
It extends literally into everything you do in your life. It extends into the cosmos. It extends infinitely. It's not something that, yes, it's located at a point right below the navel. But once you get that open, it's like a great aura of energy
Mhm.
that gives you balance, foundation, strength, chi, that enables you to live in the world and to be able to deal with all of this kind of second degree insanity that goes on the planet Earth, as well as having the strength to transcend all that and to allow your consciousness to connect with higher energy in the universe, with the cosmos, with God, Spirit. You need that power because higher energy in the universe is not an hors d'oeuvre. It's really a full meal. It's very powerful stuff. And if you don't have the hara really open that way, understand, it can burn you up also. That's why drugs are very dangerous, because they will open and activate Kundalini. They will give you a connection with this, light and fire and power of the universe. But most people that do drugs have no chi. Understand? So this energy can just literally burn them up. So that that the hara, the third chakra, it's not only for life on, dealing with the world as we see it every day. It's dealing with the entire cosmos, opening and being capable of receiving that energy and allowing that Shakti, that power of infinite energy to nurture us and to build a system inside that can truly help us gain enlightenment. That it enables us to activate Kundalini in a healthy way. We have the strength to activate Kundalini. And the activation of Kundalini will give us a direct link with higher energy in the universe. It really leads to spiritual enlightenment. So all of this is dependent upon the hara, chakra below the navel. That chakra is a point in the triangle that connects life with spirit. And when that's open, then the heart can open. The mind can be quiet.
Mhm.
The throat can open. We can allow energy to move through the sexual area and begin to master the whole, energy of Tantra, which is the transformation of the human to the spiritual. All of that can take place because the hara is developed inside a human being.
I have another question to that. So you mentioned the drugs. A lot of people I hear are doing like what they're saying, plant medicine. Is that in the same category?
Yes. I mean, look, I can't tell you how many times I was in Brazil when people wanted me to go to the Amazon and do ayahuasca. And I found out that ayahuasca is DMT. When I was a kid, I used to do DMT. I mean, it killed a friend of mine. I had a very close friend that I would do what he used to call sessions with DMT. And it was so powerful that all the walls became atoms. I was like flying on a magic carpet. It was so powerful. At the same time, when the experience was over with, I felt like I was completely drained of my life. All my energy was gone. And then one day I get a phone call that we wound up in one of my books, this kid, this thing called The Dancing Man, which is in that book with, the mystical ferry boat and Rudy. I wrote a story called The Dancing Man. One day I get a phone call from a mutual friend, told me Ramon just died in a fire in his apartment. And I knew exactly why. Because I had told this kid, this friend of mine, I said, I don't want to do this anymore. I said, this is beyond, this will kill you. And when I was told that ayahuasca is DMT, I said, holy shit, these people are crazy. I mean, I don't speak about things I haven't experienced. I've been through all this stuff. And it's not that I mean, if people want to do drugs, it's not my problem. I won't allow them to do them and come to my classes. But if people want to do them, it's their choice. And I respect it. Go do what you got to do. I did it when I was younger. And I must admit that LSD gave me my first truly profound spiritual experience. It really did. But at the same time, when I was finished, I was like a zombie. I could barely get out of bed the next day, And I said, this can't be the way to God. Can't. Should come out with more energy, more vitality, more consciousness, more creativity, I mean, I was like a zombie for 2 days after those, LSD sessions. So, look, as I say, if people want to do drugs, there's so much drugs that go on today that, who am I to judge? But at the same time, I have a very real, sense that doing that will never get one their enlightenment. In fact, I have a real sense that it just interferes with the whole spiritual growth in a human being. It gives them an experience that they might talk about for 20 years, but it doesn't build the pyramid inside them. It doesn't build the structure, in the chakra system, which is so essential to the development of a spiritual life. And it broke my heart because he was a young French guy, and he was a very dear friend of mine. And he was the first one who told me about Rudy. He said, there's a guy on 7th Avenue South who runs an antique store there, who's a really powerful teacher. He told me this. He said, I went and I wanted to study with him. He wouldn't take me unless I would stop doing drugs. This is what this friend of mine told me. And for years I used to walk past, and I always knew there was something in there. I never went in. And then one day I walked in. My whole life changed. So just to finish, I don't judge people that do drugs. It's not my business. You understand? But I will not allow them to study in these classes. I'm not interested. Because I can't teach people that are literally, excuse me, destroying their system with these drugs that eat away their brain cells, all the cells in their body, and turn people into kind of zombies, It's almost like the night of the living dead. Instead of giving them vitality and energy, creativity, and and building, as I said, that pyramid inside, which is so essential if one is going to have a spiritual life.
Stuart, does that apply to alcohol as well? And can you tell when a student is using that?
Yes, it does apply to alcohol if you're an alcoholic. But if you have a glass of wine with dinner, it's not going to do anything to you, But if you're drinking a bottle of gin, every day, it's going to certainly keep you from having a spiritual life. I mean, I'll tell you more stories about Stuart. I used to have a girlfriend who was in Alcoholics Anonymous. And I used to go to the meetings with her, and they were extraordinary. To listen to the stories of those people were better than any Broadway show that I ever went to. And I got to know quite a few of them through her. I went to the Alcoholics Anonymous cotillion ball with 2,000 or 3,000 people there at the Hilton Hotel in New York, without a drop of alcohol, sitting and having dinner at these tables. And I met people I knew who probably thought I was, part of Alcoholics Anonymous. I wasn't. And I had a major meeting there with about 300 people in my loft that attended the meeting. It was this woman's 10th anniversary of being sober. And the stories I heard were heartbreaking of what alcohol had done to these people, heartbreaking. So it's not going to keep you from having a spiritual life, it's going to destroy your life. But, a glass of wine, it's not going to kill anybody, but dinner once or twice a week is not going to hurt anybody. It's not like swallowing an LSD pill or capsule or even a joint. I used to smoke a marijuana joint, and within 5 or 10 minutes, I was floating in the cosmos. So it's different. You understand? It's different. And you don't have to be a genius to know that if you're drinking a bottle of alcohol every day, it's going to destroy you. It's destroying you. It's creating a zombie. I'll never forget those stories. I mean, I'm telling you, it was extraordinary to listen to these people tell the stories of their life and what it was like for them to be an alcoholic and how grateful they were to AA, you know, that it got them off of that drug. Does anyone else have a question? You know, it's even that girlfriend of mine, you know, she used to be a really very famous model when she was younger. And she had her own television program and this and that. She used to go on the Jack Parr show or the Johnny Carson show. And she was kind of a regular guest on the show, you know, and she went on there one day completely drunk, totally drunk. They never invited her back, and it really damaged her career. She had a great career going on, you know? And so anyway, why go into this, you know? I mean,
Stuart,
yes.
I was wondering about how do you reckon with the inspiration that can come from this meditation versus trying to live presently? And
Well, you know, Soren,
you know what I
take
mean?
away from it the energy, the chakra development, you know, and allow it for you to tune into your own inspiration and how you want to live your life. You need the strength inside to be able to allow inspiration to become practicality. You have different inspiration than I do. You understand? You will have a unique connection with God. It will come through you, but you need the system inside to allow that to become a practical part of your life. So what I'm doing here is helping you to build that kind of system, not so that you're going to have the same inspiration as me or anything even remotely like the life I've lived, but your own unique connection with God. And what you're here to learn is how to build a system that allows you to do this. That's all. And that takes time. Don't worry about it. Just continue to build a system. And that kind of thing just organically happens. It just becomes an organic part of your life.
So I shouldn't change everything in my life all at once.
No, don't change anything. Just live your life. Just bring more consciousness to it. That's all. You know, doesn't mean you got to quit your job and you know whatever it is. You know, I don't know much about your life. Whatever it is you do it. Do it with more consciousness. Do it with more love, with more compassion, more understanding, patience. And then see what happens. You don't know what's going to happen. I don't know what's going to happen in 10 minutes. I need this. I'm glad to allow it to just happen, whatever it is. Does anyone else have a question they would like to ask? Okay. So there'll be meditation on Sunday, and I'm hoping to see you all then. God bless you all. As I end this thing, I always say that I just am so grateful to be here, you know, to be able to allow these classes to open me in such a deep way that I can find that it just extends into just about everything I do in my life. And your presence here makes this possible, you know? And I just am very grateful to all of you. God bless you all. And I'm looking forward to seeing you all on Sunday, and have a wonderful evening. And also I'm hoping by the 10th of February to start having in-person classes here. I'm hoping that this COVID thing becomes just endemic and, you know, like a flu or something like that. And we can start living in a real way, you know? So bless you all. Thank you. And I'm looking forward to seeing you on Sunday.
Thank you.
Thank you, Stuart.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much.
Have a good night.
Good night.
Thank you. Thank you.